The deadbolt clicked with the finality of a coffin lid. I stood there on the porch at 17 and my entire life crammed into a black duffel bag that smelled like my old bedroom, stale air, and broken dreams. Through the screen door, my mother's face wore that smirk I'd grown to hate, the one that said she knew something I didn't. 1 month, she called through the mesh, her voice dripping with certainty. You'll be back here crawling and begging in 1 month, Carter. Mark my words. My father didn't even look at me, just turned his back and walked into the house like I'd already ceased to exist. The sound of his footsteps on the hardwood floor, the same floor I'd learned to walk on, faded into nothing. Then came the second deadbolt. The chain lock, the sound of my childhood officially ending. I caught a glimpse of my little sister Emma's face in the upstairs window, her small hand pressed against the glass. She was only 12, still young enough to believe our parents were good people. I wanted to wave, to give her some sign that this wasn't her fault, but she disappeared before I could move. That's when it hit me. Not sadness. That would come later in smaller doses during quiet moments I didn't expect. No, what hit me was pure white-hot rage. The kind that burns so clean it could power a city. I threw my duffel bag into the back seat of my beat-up Honda Civic, a car I'd bought with money from my job at the hardware store. Money my parents had tried to convince me to contribute to the household instead. Thank God I'd hidden that money. Thank God I'd learned not to trust them completely. The first night, I slept in the parking lot of a 24-hour diner, my seat reclined as far back as it would go. The streetlight buzzed overhead, casting everything in sickly yellow. I'd bought a cup of coffee and nursed it for 3 hours while the waitress, a tired woman named Dolores with kind eyes, pretended not to notice I had nowhere to go. You okay, honey? She'd asked around midnight. Just fine, I'd lied, because admitting the truth felt like giving my parents what they wanted. The second night was worse. It rained and my car leaked. I woke up with my shirt soaked and my neck cramped from the awkward angle. But I didn't go home. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. By the third night, I'd figured out the system. The gym downtown had a day pass for $5. I could shower there, use their Wi-Fi, even grab a protein bar from their vending machine. It wasn't much, but it was dignity. I enrolled in community college the day I turned 18. The essay question asked about overcoming adversity. I wrote about homelessness without mentioning my parents. The admissions counselor, Mrs. Rodriguez, a woman with graying hair and laugh lines who actually listened when students talked, called it compelling and authentic. Full ride, academic scholarship. My spite had become my scholarship. You're going places, Carter, Mrs. Rodriguez told me when she handed me the acceptance letter. Don't let anyone tell you different. I wanted to frame that letter and mail it to my parents. Instead, I folded it carefully and put it in my wallet, right behind my driver's license. Physical proof that I existed, that I mattered, that I was worth something. Computer science came naturally to me. Maybe it was all those years of fixing my parents' ancient desktop. Or maybe it was the logical progression of problems and solutions that appealed to my newly organized mind. Whatever it was, I threw myself into it with the intensity of someone who had no safety net. My professors noticed. Dr. Kim, who taught advanced programming, started giving me extra projects. You've got instincts for this, he said. Most students see code as work. You see it as possibility. He was right. Every line of code I wrote was another step away from that porch, another layer of protection between me and the people who'd thrown me away. By my second year, I was tutoring other students. By my third, I had a paid internship at a startup downtown. The company was small, just 8 people crammed into a converted warehouse. But they were building something revolutionary. A data management system that could predict market trends with scary accuracy. The CEO, a guy named Marcus, who was only 5 years older than me, but moved like he owned the world, pulled me aside after my first month. You're not like the other interns, he said. You work like you're hungry. I am hungry, and I told him. And he laughed like I'd made a joke. But it wasn't a joke. I was hungry for everything: success, security, proof that my parents had made the biggest mistake of their lives. Every late night I spent debugging code, every weekend I sacrificed for the company, every small victory that brought us closer to launch. It was all fuel for that fire they'd lit when they slammed the door. The only contact I maintained from my old life was Emma. She'd found me on social media using a fake account, messaging me from the public library after school. Our parents had told everyone I'd chosen pills over family, that I'd stolen money and run away in the night. The church believed them. The neighbors believed them. But Emma never did. I know you, she wrote in her first message. You never even drank beer. We started using burner phones, cheap flip phones I'd buy and mail to her friend's house. She'd call me every Sunday while our parents were at church, giving me updates on their lives, their lies, their slow unraveling. Dad's dealership is struggling, she told me one Sunday when I was 24. He fired 3 people last month. Mom keeps buying stuff online, but she hides the packages from him. I'd been promoted to senior developer by then. The startup had been acquired by a major tech company for $42 million. My equity stake had made me wealthy beyond anything I'd dreamed of as a 17-year-old sleeping in his car. How struggling, I asked Emma. Like, really struggling. I heard him on the phone with someone about loans. He sounded scared. Part of me, the part that still remembered being 12 and having my father teach me to throw a baseball, felt a flicker of sympathy. But then I remembered the deadbolt, the smirk, the way they'd let the whole town believe I was a pill dependent rather than admit they'd thrown out their own son for refusing to be their verbal punching bag anymore. The sympathy died. By 26, I was worth 7 figures. I'd moved to Seattle, bought a condo with a view of the Sound, started my own consulting firm. I dated a pediatric nurse named Sarah who laughed at my jokes and didn't care that I never talked about my family. Life was good. Life was mine. Then Emma called on a Tuesday in March with news that changed everything. Carter, she said, her voice shaky. They know. Know what? I asked, though my stomach was already dropping. About you, your success. There was an article in the Seattle Times about emerging tech entrepreneurs. Your picture was on the front page of the business section. I closed my eyes. I'd done that interview 3 months ago. Talked about building companies from nothing. About the importance of self-reliance. The journalist had been particularly interested in my background, though I'd kept the details vague. They saw it? I asked. Mom was at Sunday brunch with the church ladies. Mrs. Patterson brought the newspaper. She said she thought you looked familiar. Emma's voice got smaller. Mom went white as a sheet. She grabbed the paper and ran home. Dad was washing his car in the driveway. I could picture it perfectly. My father in his weekend clothes, probably the same polo shirt he'd been wearing for 5 years, sprang down his aging Buick like it was still worth something. My mother bursting out of the house with a newspaper in her hands, her face a mixture of shock and calculation. What did they do? They read the article out loud, twice. Then they just stared at each other for like 10 minutes. Then Mom started crying, but not sad crying, angry crying. She kept saying, "How dare he?" over and over. And then Dad got this look. You know the look. Like when he's planning something. He went inside and came back with his phone, started making calls. I knew exactly what calls he was making. To his brother, to his old business partner, to anyone who might have my contact information, might know how to reach me. My father had always been methodical when he wanted something. The calls started that afternoon, Emma continued. I counted 53 missed calls by dinner. Mom left 17 voicemails. My phone had been buzzing all day, but I'd been in meetings. I'd glanced at the screen and seen numbers I didn't recognize, assumed they were spam. Now I pulled up my voicemail, put the phone on speaker, and listened. The first one was my mother. Her voice syrupy sweet in a way that made my skin crawl. Carter, honey, it's Mom. We saw the article about you in the paper. We're so proud. Call us back, okay? We have so much to talk about. The second one, an hour later, had a different tone. Carter, this is your mother. I know you're busy, but family comes first. Your father wants to speak with you. By the fifth voicemail, the mask was slipping. Carter, we raised you. We sacrificed for you. You owe us a conversation at the very least. By the 10th, it was full desperation. Your father's heart can't take this stress. We need to talk. Please. The last one was my father, his voice rough with something that might have been emotion. Son, we were tough on you because we loved you. We wanted you to be strong. We always knew you'd be successful. Come home. Let's fix this. I deleted them all. Emma, I said, how bad is their situation, really? She was quiet for a long moment. Bad. Really bad. Dad's been taking cars from the lot to sell privately. I think it's called inventory fraud, and Mom's been hiding credit card bills. The house is reverse mortgaged. I heard them fighting about it last week. How do you know all this? I'm 17 now, Carter. I'm not a little kid anymore. I pay attention, and they're not as careful as they think they are. 17. The same age I'd been when they'd thrown me away. The irony wasn't lost on me. They need money, Emma said. A lot of money. And now they know you have it. What exactly do they think is going to happen? That I'll just forget the last 9 years and write them a check? I think that's exactly what they think. I laughed, but it came out bitter. They're going to be disappointed. Carter, Emma's voice got soft. I know they hurt you. I know what they did was wrong. But they're still our parents. No, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. They stopped being my parents the day they chose their pride over their son. They made their choice. Now they get to live with it. The calls kept coming for 3 days. I blocked every number, but they found new ones. Friends' phones, business contacts, even what I suspected was a burner phone from a gas station. The voicemails got increasingly desperate, then angry, then desperate again. On Thursday, my assistant Jenny knocked on my office door. Mr. Lane, there's a woman here who says she's your mother. My blood went cold. Tell her I'm not available. I did. She said she'll wait. I looked out my office window. In the lobby, I could see a figure in a beige coat, sitting ramrod straight in one of our leather chairs. Even from behind, even after 9 years, I recognized the set of her shoulders. Call security, I told Jenny. Have her removed. Are you sure? She seems upset. I'm sure. I watched from my window as 2 security guards approached my mother. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see her gesturing wildly, pointing toward the elevators. One of the guards was shaking his head. After 5 minutes, they escorted her out. She stood on the sidewalk for another hour, looking up at the building like she could will me to come down. I stayed at my window, watching her. She looked smaller than I remembered, older. Her hair was more gray than brown now, and her coat hung loose on a frame that had gotten thinner. For just a moment, I felt that flicker of sympathy again. Then I remembered Emma's face in the window, the way she'd disappeared before I could wave goodbye. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to the last number that had called me. I remember everything. Then I blocked that number too. The newspaper article had done more than alert my parents to my existence. It had alerted the entire town. Emma called me the following Sunday with an update that made me smile for the first time in days. The church is buzzing, she said. Mrs. Patterson brought 5 copies of your article to service. She's telling everyone she always knew that Lane boy would make something of himself. What are Mom and Dad saying? That's the thing. They're not saying anything. They just sit there while people congratulate them on raising such a successful son. Mom smiles and nods, but you can see it's eliminating her. I could picture it perfectly. My parents, trapped in their own lie, having to accept praise for my success when they'd spent 9 years telling everyone I was a failure. The delicious irony of it made my chest warm. There's more, Emma said. Pastor Williams asked Dad to give a testimony about tough love and how it shaped your character. Dad said he'd think about it. He won't do it, no. But the fact that he was asked, everyone's watching them now, waiting to see how they respond to having a successful son. Over the next few weeks, Emma became my eyes and ears in our hometown. She told me about the whispered conversations at the grocery store, the pointed questions at church functions, the way people looked at our parents with new interest. Mr. Henderson from the bank came by the house, she reported one evening. He wanted to discuss options with Dad. They talked in the garage for an hour. What kind of options? The kind where you use your successful son's name to get better loan terms, I think. My father had always been a user. When I was younger, he'd borrow tools from neighbors and forget to return them, ask for favors he never reciprocated, take credit for other people's ideas. The thought of him trying to leverage my success for his own benefit made my jaw clench. Emma, I need you to do something for me. What? Next time they mention me, next time they try to take credit for my success or use my name for anything, I want you to record it. Carter, I'm not asking you to spy on them. I'm asking you to document the truth, for your own protection as much as mine. She was quiet for a moment. Okay, but what are you planning? I'm planning to make sure they can't rewrite history. The recording came sooner than I expected. Emma called me on a Wednesday night, her voice excited and nervous. I got it, she said. Dad was on the phone with someone from the Rotary Club. They want to do a feature story about him raising a successful entrepreneur. He said, and I quote, Carter learned everything he knows from me. I taught him about hard work, about never giving up. Sometimes you have to be tough with kids to make them strong. Did you get it on tape? Every word. Send it to me. That night, I listened to my father's voice, claiming credit for my success, talking about his tough love approach like it had been some calculated parenting strategy instead of years of emotional misuse that culminated in throwing his son away like garbage. I made copies of the recording and stored them in multiple places. Then, I started making calls of my own. The first call was to a private investigator in my hometown, a woman named Janet Morris, who specialized in financial crimes. I'd found her through a simple Google search, but her credentials were impressive. Former FBI, 20 years of experience, discretion guaranteed. I need information on someone, I told her. Financial records, business dealings, anything that might be relevant to a fraud investigation. This is about your father's dealership, she said. It wasn't a question. You know about that? Small town, word gets around, especially when the son of a local businessman makes the big city papers. I hired her on the spot. The second call was to a journalist named Mike Chen who'd written extensively about small-town corruption. I'd read his work in regional newspapers, admired his ability to dig deep and tell complex stories in simple terms. I have a story for you, I told him, about a man who threw his son away and then tried to take credit for that son's success when it became profitable. I'm listening. It's about more than just family drama. It's about financial fraud, about lying to community institutions, about the way people rewrite history when it suits them. We talked for an hour. By the end of the conversation, Mike was hooked. The third call was to Emma. I'm going to offer you a choice, I told her. You can stay there and watch this play out, or you can come live with me in Seattle. I'll pay for your senior year at a private school, help you apply to colleges, give you a fresh start. What about mom and dad? What about them? They're going to fall apart without you to blame for everything. Good. Maybe they'll finally have to look in the mirror. Emma was quiet for a long time. Can I think about it? Of course. But Emma, whatever you decide, I want you to know something. You're not responsible for their choices. You never were. 2 weeks later, Janet Morris called with her preliminary report. Your father's in deep, she said. Inventory fraud, falsified loan applications, tax evasion. The dealership's been bleeding money for 3 years, but he's been cooking the books to hide it. How deep? 6 figures, maybe 7. And that's just what I can prove with public records. What about my mother? Credit card debt in 5 different names. She's been using your father's business credit to fund personal purchases. If the bank finds out, they'll call all the loans immediately. How long do they have? Months, maybe weeks. The house is already in foreclosure proceedings, but they've been stalling with legal maneuvers. I thanked Janet and hung up. Then I sat in my office looking out at the Seattle skyline and felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Not because my parents were suffering. I wasn't that cruel. But because their desperation had nothing to do with missing me and everything to do with needing my money. It confirmed what I'd suspected all along. They hadn't changed. They were still the same selfish, manipulative people who'd thrown away their son rather than admit they were wrong. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. I want to come to Seattle. Emma arrived on a Thursday in late spring, carrying 2 suitcases and wearing the same expression I'd had at 17, determined, scared, and trying not to show it. I picked her up at SeaTac, and the first thing she said when she got in my car was, "They think I'm visiting Aunt Carol in Portland. How long before they figure out the truth? I left a letter. They'll find it tonight." She handed me an envelope with Mom and Dad written in her careful handwriting. I made you a copy. I read it while we waited in airport traffic. Mom and Dad, by the time you read this, I'll be with Carter in Seattle. I'm not running away. I'm making a choice. The same choice you forced him to make 9 years ago. I know about the money problems. I know about the lies you've been telling about Carter. I know you threw him out because he wouldn't let you control him. Not because he was on pills or stealing or any of the other stories you've made up. I'm 17 now, old enough to decide where I want to live and who I want to be around. I choose my brother, who never lied to me, over parents who lie to everyone, including themselves. Don't try to find me. Don't stop call the police. I'm not missing. I'm exactly where I want to be. Emma. Damn, I said. You don't pull punches. I learned from the best. I got Emma enrolled at a private school in Bellevue, helped her set up a bank account, bought her a car. She adapted to her new life with the resilience that seemed to run in our family. The good parts of our family, anyway. 3 days after Emma left, my phone exploded with calls again. This time I answered one. Carter, thank God. My mother's voice was frantic. Emma's missing. We need your help. We need to call the police. Emma's not missing, I said calmly. She's with me. Silence, then. What do you mean she's with you? I mean she's living with me now, in Seattle. She's enrolled in school, she has everything she needs, and she's happy. You can't just take our daughter. I didn't take her. She chose to leave, just like I did. That's different. I was what, Mom? A pill dependent? A thief? Which lot are you going with today? Another silence. Carter, we need to talk, all of us, as a family. We're not a family. You made sure of that 9 years ago. We made mistakes. You made choices, and now you get to live with them. I hung up. The calls from my father started an hour later. Where my mother had been frantic, he was calculating. Son, I know we have our differences, but Emma belongs with her parents. Emma belongs wherever she feels safe and loved. Apparently, that's not with you. Look, I know you're angry about what happened when you were younger. When I was younger? Dad, I'm 26 years old. I've been supporting myself for 9 years. I own a company. I have employees. I'm not some angry teenager you can dismiss. I'm not dismissing you. I'm proud of you. We both are. No, you're not. You're proud of my bank account. There's a difference. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about the story you've been telling people for 9 years. Let's talk about the pill obsession I never had, the money I never stole, the family I supposedly abandoned. We were hurt. We said things we didn't mean. You said them for 9 years, Dad, to everyone who would listen. You turned me into the town cautionary tale rather than admit you'd made a mistake. We can fix this. We can tell people the truth. The truth? Which version? The one where you're loving parents who made a hard choice? Or the one where you threw away your son because your pride was more important than your family? He was quiet for a long moment. What do you want from us? Nothing. That's what you never understood. I don't want anything from you. I don't need anything from you. I stopped being your son the day you decided I wasn't worth keeping. Carter, goodbye, Dad. I blocked their numbers again, but this time it felt different, final. Emma was safe, I was successful, and they were exactly where their choices had led them. Mike Chen's article came out 2 weeks later in the regional newspaper. The headline read, "Local Family's Success Story Has a Darker Side." The piece was thorough, well-researched, and devastating. Mike had interviewed former employees of my father's dealership, church members who remembered the original story about my supposed pill problem, and financial experts who explained the signs of the kind of fraud my father was apparently committing. The article included quotes from the recording Emma had made, my father's voice claiming credit for my success, contrasted with documented evidence of how I'd actually built my life. Mike had even found Mrs. Rodriguez, my old community college counselor, who remembered my essay about homelessness and my parents' complete absence from my academic life. Carter Lane succeeded despite his family, not because of them, the article concluded. His story isn't about tough love or character building. It's about a young man who refused to let other people's failures define his future. Emma called me the day the article hit the stands. It's chaos here, she said. People are showing up at the house. Dad won't come out of his office. Mom's been crying for 2 days. Any regrets about leaving? None, Carter. Yeah? Thank you for giving me a choice, for showing me there was another way. You would have figured it out eventually. You're stronger than I was at your age. No, I'm not. I just had a better example to follow. The church council meeting happened on a Tuesday evening in June. Emma wasn't there. She was safely in Seattle, finishing her senior year and preparing for college. But she heard about it from friends who still lived in town. Pastor Williams called a special meeting, she told me over video chat, about truth and reconciliation in the community. Mom and Dad were asked to attend. Asked or required? Required. Apparently, some of the church members had questions after Mike's article came out. The meeting, as Emma heard it from her friend Jessica, whose mother was on the council, was brutal. Pastor Williams had printed copies of the article, the recording transcript, and what he called supporting documentation that I suspected came from Janet Morris's investigation. He asked them directly if they'd lied about why you left, Emma said, in front of the whole council. Mom started crying again. Dad tried to explain, but Pastor Williams cut him off. What did he say? That the church had supported them for 9 years based on false information, that they'd let Mom and Dad paint you as a cautionary tale when you were actually a success story they'd thrown away. The council's decision was swift and public. My parents were asked to step down from all leadership positions immediately. The official statement, which was read from the pulpit the following Sunday, said that they needed time to reflect on the importance of honesty in Christian community. It was a polite way of saying they'd been kicked out for lying. The social consequences came quickly after that. My father's Rotary Club membership was suspended pending review. My mother was quietly removed from the hospital auxiliary board. The country club, where they'd been members for 15 years, suddenly found reasons to decline their renewal application. In a small town, reputation is currency, and theirs had just been devalued to nothing. The financial consequences were even swifter. The bank, spooked by the negative publicity and armed with Janet Morris's findings, called in all of my father's business loans immediately. The dealership closed within a week. The house went into foreclosure the following month. They're moving in with Aunt Carol, Emma told me in July, in Portland. Dad got a job at a used car lot. Mom's working retail at a department store. How do you feel about that? Honestly, I feel bad for Aunt Carol. I laughed despite myself. Emma had developed a sharp sense of humor during her months in Seattle, along with a confidence I'd never seen when she was living under our parents' roof. They asked about you, she said, whether you might help them get back on their feet. What did you tell them? I told them you were busy building your life and didn't have time to fix theirs. That's my girl. The final piece of my revenge wasn't planned. It was just the natural consequence of living well. In September, Forbes ran a feature story about young entrepreneurs who'd built companies from nothing. I was on the cover. The article talked about my background in general terms, a difficult childhood being on my own from a young age, using adversity as motivation. It mentioned my charitable work with homeless youth and my scholarship fund for kids aging out of foster care. Emma sent me a photo of the magazine display at the grocery store in our hometown. Mrs. Patterson bought 10 copies, she texted. She's telling everyone she always believed in you. That same week, I got a letter forwarded from my old address. The envelope was cream-colored, expensive-looking, with my name written in my mother's careful handwriting. Inside was a single page. Carter, I saw the Forbes article. Your father and I are very proud of your success. We know we made mistakes when you were younger. We were dealing with our own problems and didn't handle things well. We hope someday you can forgive us. We're starting over in Portland. It's been difficult, but we're managing. If you ever want to talk, we're here. Love, Mom. I read it twice, looking for something. An acknowledgement of the specific damage they'd done, an apology that didn't blame their actions on problems and difficult times. Some sign that they understood the difference between making mistakes and making choices. I didn't find it. I put the letter in my desk drawer and forgot about it. Christmas morning in my Seattle condo was everything the holidays in my childhood home had never been. Emma and I made pancakes and opened presents without walking on eggshells, without wondering who would start the first fight or what innocent comment would trigger an explosion. Sarah was there too. We'd been dating for 2 years now, and she'd become the sister Emma had always deserved, and the partner I'd never thought I'd be lucky enough to find. She was patient with our family trauma, understanding about our need to create new traditions, and fierce in her protection of the peace we'd built. Your parents called my office yesterday, Sarah told me while we were cleaning up breakfast dishes. I stopped loading the dishwasher. What? They somehow found out where I work, asked if I could convince you to call them, said it was important. What did you tell them? I told them I don't get involved in other people's family business, and if they wanted to talk to you, they should find a way to earn that conversation. Emma grinned. I like her. Me too, I said, kissing Sarah's cheek. But the call bothered me more than I wanted to admit. The fact that they'd tracked down Sarah, tried to use her as an intermediary, suggested a level of desperation that went beyond their financial problems. I found out why 3 days later when Janet Morris called. Your father's in legal trouble, she said without preamble. The state attorney general's office is investigating the dealership fraud. They're building a case. How serious? Serious enough that he could face jail time. And your mother's implicated too. She signed some of the falsified loan documents. When? The investigation started after that newspaper article came out. Someone forwarded it to the Attorney General's office with a complaint about fraud. The timing suggests it might have been someone from the bank or maybe a former employee with an axe to grind. I thought about all the people my father had cheated over the years, all the corners he'd cut, all the lies he'd told. His chickens were finally coming home to roost. They probably want to reconcile with you before the story goes public, Janet continued. Having a successful son who speaks well of them might help with public perception, maybe even influence a judge if it comes to sentencing. They want to use me. They want to use you. Same as always. That evening, I sat Emma and Sarah down and told them about the investigation. So, what are you going to do? Emma asked. Nothing. Same as I've been doing. Carter, Sarah said gently, I know they hurt you. I know they don't deserve your help, but if they go to prison, then they go to prison. That's what happens when you commit crimes. They're still your parents. No, they're not. They gave up that title 9 years ago. They're just people I used to know who happen to share my DNA. Emma was quiet for a moment. Do you think I should call them? Do you want to call them? I don't know. Part of me feels guilty, like maybe I should try to help. I sat down next to her on the couch. Emma, you were a child when all this started. You spent your whole life trying to keep the peace in a house where peace was impossible. You don't owe them anything. But they're going to lose everything. They already lost everything. 9 years ago, when they chose their pride over their children. Everything that's happened since then is just the bill coming due. The news broke in February. Local businessman charged with fraud was the headline in the regional paper. Mike Chen wrote the follow-up story, which included details about the investigation, the charges, and the potential penalties. The story mentioned me only briefly. The couple's son, Carter Lane, is a successful technology entrepreneur who has had no contact with his parents since leaving home as a teenager. That one sentence said everything and nothing. It was accurate without being detailed, factual without being dramatic. Perfect. My parents' trial was scheduled for the fall. I didn't plan to attend, didn't plan to follow the coverage, didn't plan to think about it at all. I had better things to do. Emma graduated valedictorian from her new high school and got accepted to Stanford with a full scholarship. Sarah and I got engaged on the anniversary of the day Emma had come to live with us. My company landed a major government contract that would keep us busy for the next 5 years. Life was good. Life was mine. On a Sunday in March, exactly 10 years after the day my parents had thrown me out, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Carter? The voice was older, shakier than I remembered, but unmistakably my father's. How did you get this number? I have connections, people who know people. What do you want? I want to talk to you, face to face, man to man. We have nothing to talk about. Please. Just give me 5 minutes. I'll come to Seattle. I'll meet you anywhere you want. No. Carter, I'm going to prison. Your mother, too, probably. This might be the last chance we have to what? To make things right? To explain yourselves? To ask for forgiveness? Yes. Dad, you had 10 years to make things right. You chose to spend those years lying about me instead. You had 10 years to explain yourselves. You chose to blame me for your own failures instead. You had 10 years to ask for forgiveness. You chose to ask for money instead. We were wrong. We know that now. You knew it then, too. You just didn't care. Carter, goodbye, Dad. I hung up and blocked the number. That night, I dreamed about the porch again. But this time, I wasn't 17 and scared. I was 27 and successful, standing on the other side of the door, looking at two people who'd made themselves strangers. In the dream, they were the ones with the suitcases. I woke up smiling. 5 years later, I'm standing in the kitchen of the house Sarah and I bought in Bellevue, making coffee and reading the morning news on my tablet. Emma's in her 3rd year at Stanford, studying computer science like her big brother. Sarah's getting ready for her shift at the Children's Hospital, where she's now the head of pediatric nursing. It's a quiet Sunday morning, the kind I never had growing up, the kind I never take for granted. My phone buzzes with a text from Emma. Saw the news about Dad, you okay? I scroll through the local news sites until I find the story, Former dealership owner dies in prison. The article is short, clinical. A heart attack, they say. He was 62. I read it twice, waiting to feel something. Sadness, anger, regret, closure. Instead, I feel nothing at all. He's a stranger who happened to share my name, who died in a place his own choices had taken him. Sarah comes into the kitchen, sees me reading. Bad news? My father died. She stops, studies my face. How do you feel? I don't know. Empty, I guess? Not sad, not happy, just empty. That's okay. You don't have to feel anything. I keep thinking I should feel something. He was my father. He was the man who raised you for 17 years and then threw you away. Whatever you feel or don't feel about his death is the right thing to feel. I nod, close the tablet. I should call Emma. She'll be okay. She's stronger than both of us. She is, isn't she? My phone rings. Unknown number, but I recognize the area code. Portland. Carter? My mother's voice is smaller than I remember, worn down by years of consequences. I suppose you heard. I heard. The funeral is Tuesday, in case you wanted to come. I won't be there. I understand. A pause. Carter, I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I'm proud of you, of what you've built, of who you've become. Are you proud of Emma too? Of course. Then you should know she's not coming either. Another pause. Longer this time. I know I don't have the right to ask, but could you tell her I love her? You can tell her yourself. If you ever figure out how to love someone without trying to control them. Carter. Goodbye, Mom. I hang up and turn off my phone. Sarah wraps her arms around me from behind. You okay? I'm perfect, I say, and mean it. That afternoon, Emma calls from Stanford. We talk for an hour about everything except our father's death, her classes, her boyfriend, her plans for summer break. Normal things, family things. I love you, big brother, she says before we hang up. I love you too. After the call, I sit on my deck overlooking the sound, drinking coffee and watching sailboats cut through the water. Sarah's beside me, reading a book. The sun is warm on my face. I think about the 17-year-old boy who slept in his car, who showered at the gym, who turned spite into scholarship and rage into success. I think about the choices that led him here, to this deck, this woman, this life. I think about my parents who chose pride over love, control over connection, lies over truth, who died as they lived, alone, bitter, wondering why their children had abandoned them, never understanding that they'd abandoned us first. I think about Emma, who got the childhood I'd protected her from having, who got the choices I'd fought to give her, who got the love she deserved. And I think about the family Sarah and I are building, the children we'll raise, the home we'll create. A place where love isn't conditional, where mistakes are forgiven, where no one gets thrown away. The sun sets over the sound, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Sarah reaches over and takes my hand. What are you thinking about? She asks. The future, I say. Just the future. Somewhere in Portland, my mother is planning a funeral for a man who died in prison, wondering why his children won't come to mourn him. She'll stand by his grave and tell herself stories about tough love and difficult circumstances, about children who forgot where they came from. She'll never understand that we didn't forget where we came from. We just refused to let it define where we were going. The deadbolt that slammed 10 years ago was the sound of one door closing and another door opening. They chose the closed door. Emma and I chose the open one, and we never looked back.